This is the Steve Shriver Podcast, where entrepreneur, adventurer, and community activist Steve Shriver shares what he's learned on his journey so you can make it in business and make it good. The big topic for this episode,
it's about being scrappy, reducing the barriers of entry to a business by being scrappy.
We'll be right back. The Steve Shriver Podcast is brought to you by EcoLips, the original organic lip balm. Use the promo code PODCAST20 for 20% off your first order on ecolips.com. EcoLips, all-natural organic lip balm, deeply connected with nature, applying beneficial organic ingredients to better people's lives. A proud certified B Corp, founded in 2003. EcoLips, spread the good. And spread the promo code PODCAST20 into that promo code box. It's good for 20% off your first order on ecolips.com.
Welcome to the Steve Shriver Podcast. How's it going, everybody? I'm Steve Shriver, serial entrepreneur, sitting here with Joe Coffee.
What's up?
In Cafe Grande Studios in the southeast side of Cedar Rapids.
Repping it on the southeast side.
That's right. And we are talking about entrepreneurship. We are spreading the gospel of entrepreneurship through this podcast and doing everything we can to share stories, anecdotes, and knowledge of years and years and years and years of buying, selling, functioning in business, practicing business, winning deals, losing deals, and all of the things that go along with entrepreneurship in business.
You are sharing your knowledge.
Yeah, it's a lot, man. It's stressful. So, yeah. But I love being able to share this with people, and I appreciate everybody that's listening and everybody that is contributed to my success. And helps me, get through the day, the week, the year, and allows me to keep doing what I love to do, which is entrepreneurship, building businesses, etc.
Awesome.
And thank you, Joe, for this platform, man.
You bet, man. It's I love being the sidekick because this is your expertise, but to play this role where I'm kind of teeing up questions that I honestly have because I haven't created businesses like you have. I feel like when we watch back these episodes, I'm trying to be you, the listener, and just bring the questions they would have. So always a blast. Always a blast.
Right on. Yeah. Right on. Someday I want two ferns, not just one plant in the middle. So speaking of that, you can see this, you can watch this on YouTube, or you can get it on all the Spotifys and the Apples and all that stuff. Right. Today, this is something that I don't think about a lot. I just do it. And it is, I think it's essential to the entrepreneurial mindset. And it's about being scrappy. Just being scrappy, getting done what you need to get done to succeed on a shoestring budget a lot of times. And just reducing the barriers of entry to a business by being scrappy. What I mean by that is like, they're pulling office furniture out of a dumpster and using that. And if that seems...
You've done that.
Right?
I've heard that story.
Dude, great. We lucked into this. I mean, should I just start there? Is that okay? Yeah. So EcoLips, when we started in the Cherry building, the building actually was storage for office furniture for other businesses. And so it was like the type of real estate that nobody really wanted to put their business in, which made us being scrappy for finding the cheapest place in town where it's either going to be storage unit or, basically storage for other larger businesses or little entrepreneurial startups and, artist spaces. And, but yeah, so every so often as we were there, there'd be 10 new chairs in the dumpster, a new desk in the dumpster, and I'm like, let's get it before anybody else does, right? That piece of our history, of my history, it still stands today. Mm-hmm. Like if there's a thing that will work in your business that you don't have to buy or buy new, and you can repurpose something or just the mindset of it, whether it's marketing, expenses, borrowing, floating checks, all that stuff. And we'll go into a little bit more detail. It's like, that is so essential to success.
So here are my thoughts. I bet a lot of people listening to this podcast, they love business, they love starting businesses, and maybe they have a lot of capital and they roll different. And they're like, hey, we're going to invest and we're going to pay for this and kind of get from, the ground floor. It's going to be shiny and new. And yep. I'm hearing you say, you've always gone about it by lowering the barriers to entry and just doing what you got to do.
Yeah. And that's a good point. So, okay, you got money in the bank, right? All right. You've raised capital, or you've got, X amount of money to put towards the business. Unless you're in the business of, for instance, let's look at your office space, your physical space. Every single business that I own or have owned, you talk about the Olympic Southside Theater, SoCo Outfitters, Brewhemia, there are elements of those businesses, those buildings that they're in. First of all, we rather than build a new building, we went into something old. You can typically save money that way, and it's better for the environment. And the walls at the Olympic are the original walls, 100 years old. The floor at SoCo is the original floor, 100 years old. And we could have redone it and made it perfect. But so we embraced it's kind of like embracing the vibe of the space.
And that works into the scrappiness too.
Yeah, but right. We saved money. And by saving money, we were able to put that into more important stuff, right? Like, and I'll use the Olympic as an example. It's a 10,000 square foot event center. We do live music and we do, weddings and everything in between. And by not refinishing every square inch of that place, we had more money to put into these beautiful chandeliers, and because those were more important, and we had more money to put into marketing and other infrastructure. Whereas we could have blown everything on just making this thing look perfect and not been quite as scrappy as we were, the outcome might have been different.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So talking about your physical space, how can you use that? How, basically reserving your cash for more important things.
Cool.
On that note, I'll say, let's jump into marketing.
Okay.
We can easily get caught up in spending. We all do it, and we should spend on marketing, but you can get caught up in I got to do, radio, billboards, digital, print, all that stuff. And sometimes that only satisfies the ego of you and your brand and your company, and it might not be really delivering results. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be a whole nother episode that we do on marketing. Mm-hmm. But one thing we've done to be scrappy is do interesting things and earn media. Mm-hmm. Earning media costs almost nothing, and it can deliver results that go way beyond. And so when I ran across Iowa and spread the news, spread the love of organic and what it does for the environment, and talked to farmers and schools and educated Iowans on the power of organic, and it got us in the news. It got us in the media.
Big time.
Yeah. And it didn't cost that much money. So you can be scrappy by, in your marketing. You can be scrappy in your surroundings. Here, this is a good one. I flip-flop on whether I should tell people about this or not, but there were times when we would do a trade show and we would only, we had enough money to get to the show. We had enough money to put samples, in people's hands and to shooby-doo-wop and do the talk at the trade show. This would be took everything we got to get from Iowa to Anaheim, California. And sometimes we couldn't afford to fly there, so we had to drive. And we'd get there, be like, oh crap, our booth is empty. We have our product and we have our, and we have ourselves, but we're missing a few things. Like, we need to make this place, our trade show booth, 10 by 10. We need to make it look a lot better. And, there might have been a year or two where we borrowed furniture from our hotel room to put in the booth. Now, we returned it.
Yeah.
But again, it was like, okay, we could have, at the time, we actually couldn't. And so we couldn't afford to buy a trade show booth here, ship it out there, get it set up. So it was like, all right, what are we got to be scrappy. What are we going to do? That table looks nice. That chair looks nice. And so we had a double XL duffel bag, and we literally shoved the table into this. It's good. Always bring a big duffel bag with you when you're at a trade show.
I will say this though. I've seen you at that trade show, the Natural Products Expo, and I see how you roll, and I feel like it's almost like it's like Barbara Mandrell being country before country was cool, right? Like it's kind of, at that show especially, it's kind of not cool to be the big 1,000-pound gorilla, and people are interested in the Hall E Scrappy booths.
That's
where
right.
All the innovation is.
Yeah.
And look at these people; they're small, but they've got ideas, and the sample products are killer.
Yeah.
It's like it's cool to hear you talk back on that story, because now people are trying to emulate that kind of a grassroots look and feel with a side Hall E booth.
Yeah.
In addition to their big one, and they're trying to cloud the fact that they're owned by the big guys.
Right, that's
they're trying to
so
look like,
true. It's like, oh yeah, and let's ship in a bunch of pallets, and we'll do a pallet booth and make it look like we're from a farm, and but yeah, it's so you're totally right. And I think there is this element of it's just like true function and authenticity, and like we're here to do business, and yeah, we're not the big glitzy. And that's who we are. And at the time, I'm not gonna apologize for it today, but it did allow us. It's like, even if we had the thousands of dollars at the time to spend on the trade show booth, we didn't. And we put that to better use.
I have to wonder if there's a bit of a litmus test with team and employees through that. I mean, I bet that experience, some people will get it and they'll be like, yeah, let's go. Who's grabbing the coffee table? And I wonder if there are people who are just uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
And that kind of signals to you, like, I wonder if you're meant for this team, if this weirds you out.
It's totally true. It's a great point, because it's probably moderately illegal to do that. And so, I mean, there's another thing. Like, I mean, I have only gotten to where I'm at by breaking the rules, right? I mean, like, it's just part of the entrepreneurial DNA is to break the rules without ideally breaking the law. But it's just like pushing the boundaries. But this is a great point. I mean, if that's not to be scrappy, you don't have to steal furniture from the hotel, but it's more of just,
it's a mindset.
It's a mindset. Repurposing. It just doesn't have to be new and shiny and perfect every single time.
Have you paid people in beer and bartered things for services related to business?
Absolutely. Not, because they wouldn't be paying income tax on that, Joe. And if the IRS is looking at us right now, no. Yeah, man. I mean, again, it's like early on with the friends and family, it's like, yes, let's, whatever it takes.
Scratching backs.
Yep. Exactly. One thing I try to be super conscious of is not asking too many favors and doing too much on that level, because I don't want to think back and like owe somebody or not have compensated somebody properly. But I mean, again, if it's a total win-win and it's on the up and up, yes, trade, barter, whatever it might be, 100%. On that note, money, how to be scrappy with money. Okay. Finances. So if you're financing a piece of equipment, if you're financing anything, inventory, whatever, I mean, a lot of times it is a blend. It's a blend of your own cash. It could be a blend of traditional finance. It could be a blend of a lease and your own cash. And so just know that there's not one way to get a deal done, that there are always other ways. I mean, you can factor invoices to create cash to get done what you want to do. Factoring invoices is a scrappy move, and I don't recommend it. But if it's what you need to get through those times, then you do it. And that's basically you're selling your accounts receivable, and you're giving away a good chunk of it to get through those tough times.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So
there's a money side of it, a whole world there.
Yes. And, it's like, okay, floating a check. Like, okay, I might write checks on a regular basis and there's no money in the account to back that up. Like straight up. But by Tuesday there will be. And by the time this person so it's kind of like, what is your comfort level and how good are you at predicting the, that gap where you're floating a check and you're pretty confident the money's going to be in there, and also earning the relationship with the bank to say, rather than you're not going to get all these fees back. And, this episode is already feeling very reckless, but whatever, man, this is reality. But like having that relationship with the bank where they're like, hey, Steve, we have a couple checks in here that are trying to clear and there's not enough funds. And then it's like, okay, cool. I'll be in by the end of the day to clear that up. Or I'm expecting a big X coming in and it might be tomorrow. Is that okay?
And you're talking about being situational and being real. You're not saying like by rule, we pay our invoices on a 60-day and then work a float into that. You're talking about just a per sitch.
Absolutely. I'm just saying like in those times of crisis, absolutely. Because the best thing you can do is, pay the bills on time so that when you do need to ask a favor, you can. But totally, I'm saying there are times when you have to be scrappy and you're like, okay, there's not enough money in there today, but there will be in a week or 3 days, and I'm going to mail the check, a day late. Again, I'm not trying to say take advantage of anybody in this process.
Yeah.
But there are ways to, to connect the dots.
Why do I get the feeling that some entrepreneurs listening to this episode are going to be right there with you being like, oh yeah, been there. Yeah, that's a good idea. And then some people wanting to start a business, this is going to scare the crap out of them.
Yeah.
Right? Is it like an experience / culture, some kind of a combo to where some people just don't think this way? And can they get there? Or is this their sign to maybe you shouldn't be an entrepreneur?
Right. And there people on all sides of the spectrum, right? I don't really, there's no right answer here. You certainly don't have to float a check, and you don't have to pull your stuff, your office furniture out of a dumpster. But you do have to be frugal. This would be like the worst thing possible is if you get, let's say you have $100,000 in the bank and you spend it perfectly on all this new shit and your sales don't meet up with your budget and you're screwed. So you should be frugal. You should, no matter what, be as scrappy as you can when you can. And so, yeah, at that point, you're probably not going to be floating checks and you're probably not going to be, doing some of these super hardcore, scrappy entrepreneur activities, but you could still, repurpose, reuse, try to spend less than what you budgeted.
Yeah.
That's being scrappy right there.
I seem to recall, whether it's Mark Cuban or whoever, like this is a common theme when you read entrepreneur books. It's like everybody, or a lot of them who are successful anyway, start off on scrap factor 10. Right. And once they're huge and big, maybe they're not on scrap factor 10 anymore, but they still have certain approaches where they're like, you know what, even though we're huge now, we can be scrappy on this new product or whatever. And
it's the same thing like it's like at Bohemia. We're a restaurant, right? And it's like we want to work on a new menu item or a couple new menu items. Well, let's look at the ingredients that we have on hand that we could that we could use in a new product
already in stock.
Yeah, in stock. Thank you. And rather than having a whole nother bit of inventory that we have to purchase, store, and track. And so every single level of the business, there's this scrappy factor. And to your point earlier, like once your team understands that and how you operate, and then your team starts being scrappy, and it's in your DNA. It's part of your culture. And now it could backfire. I remember we were in the early days at Ecolips, we would let's not throw this piece of equipment out because it might, or even just a a little piece of a conveyor belt or something, like let's put it in the scrapyard, boneyard, whatever. And all of a sudden and then we had a bike in the lobby. So Steve liked bikes and we liked bikes. And so then all of a sudden we had 2 bikes and we had all this equipment in the back, and then we had 3 bikes. And then one day I walked in there and it was like, it literally felt like a junkyard. I'm like, whoa. This is not a bike. So it's not a bike shop. We make lip balm here. So we can have maximum of 3 bikes in this place. And if there are any additional parts, they have to be for equipment that we will likely use in the next 3 years. And so it can get out of control, but
then
whatever.
You dial it in.
Yeah, you dial it in. Yeah. So, gosh, I'm trying to think if there's anything else about being scrappy. Repurpose. We've got the marketing, capital expenses. I think we talked about it with equipment, but buying used equipment, dime on the dollar if you can find the right thing. I mean, if you buy a brand new, the restaurant industry is the greatest example of this. You buy a brand new refrigerator, and you are paying at least twice the amount that you would pay if you bought a used refrigerator.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so why buy new when it's something very functional, if it's not a very specific piece of equipment that you need? Now on an espresso machine, there's, something that you, that could run into a lot of problems and you might have warranty issues, et cetera. I get all that, but, this idea of like buying new equipment is not great.
It makes sense to me because, Frugal is frugal and Scrappy is scrappy. I think they overlap, but you hear about Warren Buffett living in that same house to this day. There's something to be said about just the general notion of frugality, and it's a big part of being scrappy out of necessity, but it's also like mantra, right?
Right. Now here's, and you just caused me to think of this, the other side of it. And it's like, my favorite book, The E-Myth, and talk about the, working in the business versus on it. Now, this could be misconstrued as being scrappy, as being the guy that, or the gal that does everything within the business too. Like, I'm not going to hire that out. I'm not going to delegate it out because I want to be scrappy. I'm going to do this. And that's absolutely not what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Like, when in doubt, delegate it out. Always think about the best use of your time and the best use of your money. And it's not always being the person that is the technician that's the one fixing it. Even if you should be at a level where you're working on more important stuff for the business.
All right, so let me recap this episode. We're talking about being scrappy. Steve, you said repurpose what you can. You're lowering the barriers to entry. That's what entrepreneurs do. There's a cost equation, and you have to constantly think about that and be strategic. Being scrappy helps you to that goal. Trade, barter, scratch backs, do what you have to. In the money side of things, there's an entire scrappy mentality you can learn to use. Go for the blend between cash, leasing, traditional financing, and even factoring in invoices. There are ways to do that to different degrees.
Yep.
You also mentioned as a scrap factor mantra, never lose it completely. And at some point, if you're lucky, it kind of gets into the DNA of your team.
Yeah, man. Great summary, Joe.
Boom.
Bam. Okay.
Thanks for sharing that wisdom, man. I like this episode. There's something cool about being scrappy. I don't care what the business is. There are ways to be scrappy that are probably good for the business.
Yeah,
right?
and it can't hurt you. That's the thing about it. You got to be you got to persevere, and you got to be resilient, and you got to be scrappy to be a successful entrepreneur in a startup world. So right on. So thanks everybody for listening. We got more to come, and follow us on, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, all the other channels, YouTube, all that. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you, Joe.
You bet.
And thank you, community, for allowing this whole thing to happen. Have a great day.
All right. The Steve Shriver Podcast is brought to you by Ecolips, the original organic lip balm. Use the promo code podcast20 for 20% off your first order on ecolips.com. Keep up with the show at steveshriverpodcast.com and the Steve Shriver Podcast on Facebook.